Okay, so for this version, we will still calculate the area and the perimeter, but the width and the length will be passed by value to two functions that will specialize in the calculation of the area and the perimeter. Let's start there. So first, the area. Let's do a void, so it's not going to return anything. However, it will have two parameters. So area of a rectangle will have a float, comma, float. So notice I'm not formally saying float width, float length. I am simply writing the signature right here. Okay? And then the same thing with perimeter. So void perimeter. It will take two floats right there. Okay? Now, let's define these functions and have them work with these two float parameters. But this time I'm going to formally assign variable names, okay, in the parameter list. So let's start with the area. So void area, and that would be float length, and then float width. Okay? And we will simply print the result. Since the length and the width will be passed along to the function, might as well go ahead and do the calculation right here. Area equals %.2f /n, and then multiply length times width. Okay, fairly simple. Now let's deal with the perimeter. So again, void perimeter. Okay, and it will formally again float length, comma, float width. Okay, try to keep it consistent. Could I have put in width before length? Yes. But keep it consistent. That way, when you call these functions, you know the order is going to always be the same. Okay? And then printf. And that would be perimeter equals, and that'd be %.2f. Again, I'm setting the precision to 2 decimal points. And that would be 2 times length plus width. And then close the curly brace. That's the end of that function. Let me just compile here to make sure the code is correct. Okay? And notice if you run this, you will simply get press any key to continue. You need to call these functions. So before you call them, you need to pass along values for the width and the length. Aha. Can I have my own length and width in main? Yes. You could do float width length, which, let me spell float better here. Okay. Here you go. And you can see that these are local variables to main and have nothing to do other than their values will be the same with these. They're two different memory locations, which is great because if you're dealing with local variables, you could reuse the same variables, the variable names again and again. We've seen within the scope of the same function when you use the variable name, the same one, you redeclare it, you're going to get an error, right? So once you declare something here, and if I try to do this, float width again, then I will get an error here, right? You can't redeclare something that already exists within that function. This width and length, however, are local to main. Okay, so now let's go ahead and ask the user, printf, enter the width, or the length. Let's start with the length of the rectangle. Okay, and that would be scanf. Now, could I have done both of them at the same time? Yeah, sure. We've seen that %f, and this would be and length. Then we're going to ask for the width. Printf. Enter the width of the rectangle. And we're going to do a scanf here. And that would be %f and %width. Okay, let me just compile to make sure my code is correct. Same time as I'm compiling, it's saving the file for me. This isn't enough. This is simply going to have values for length and width within main. So what do we do with them? Well, you need to make some function calls to get the area and the perimeter. And how do you do that? Well, very easy. You have, remember, your area has two parameters, so supplied with 2 arguments. Length, right here, and width. Okay, as you can see, even the compiler is helping you. You need to enter the length here and the width right here, semicolon. And the same thing for perimeter. Okay, length and width. Now let me make sure that I've spelled all my perimeters the same way. Remember, we made a mistake like that before. Okay, and width. And now let's compile this. Okay, looking good. Let's run it. By having these two run, they will print their own area and perimeter, right? So let's see how that works. So compile and run. I should have just simply run. Enter the length of the rectangle. Let's say we have a 1.1. And let's say the width also is a 1.1, right? So it's a square. Let's see. Right? So it's a 2.2 times 2, 4.4. That's perfect. The area is 1.21. Perfect. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and do another program like this one. But the area and the perimeter will return a value instead of void. Okay? So that will be our next example.